An Iron Bowl recruiting battle for the number one player in the state. Sign me up.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's Recruiting Thursday. We are joined by Brian Smith, Locked On recruiting expert, as well as the host of The Portal, a daily show on all things recruiting, NIL, and of course, the transfer portal. Brian, let's talk about Auburn's quarterback situation when we look to the future, as well as Ezavier Crowell announcing his official visit to the Tigers, as well as Jireh Edwards. Where does Auburn stand with a very talented defensive back? Tell me if you've heard this before from St. Francis Academy. But let's start things off with the number one player in the state. On most places you look, not everywhere, but so it's not consensus. But Anthony Jones, Tank Jones, very talented edge defender, could probably do more than that if you asked him to. But an exceptional athlete from Mobile. A lot of folks saying it's down to Auburn and Alabama. They're certainly the two folks leading for his services. First off, you've seen Tank a good bit. What do you think about him as a player? And then what do you think about this recruitment?
First off, as a player, it's yes, more please.
Sure.
The first kid that I met when I got to Auburn, he was visiting Auburn leaving, and I met him. He walked out and somebody said, yeah, he's only right now, just so you know, he's a sophomore. He's going to junior. I said, excuse me? I thought he was a kid that had already signed. You know what I mean? Like,
just because physically that's what he looked like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
He's like a professional boxer. You know, he's put together, just real long and just super athletic. But anyway, he's a pass rusher. He can play strong side, weak side, doesn't matter. He is a future NFL player. And it doesn't take more than 3 to 5 clips. And you're like, this is not hard. This is a no-brainer. So LSU, Bama, Georgia, those are some of the main competitors, among others. But I mean, if Miami or USC or anybody picked up the phone and he said, I want to come, they would say yes. It doesn't matter. He can go anywhere he wants. Mm-hmm. I think this will be an Auburn, Alabama battle based on what I've heard. But again, don't discount other schools. Auburn was hot with him. We thought at one point last summer he might even commit. I remember having that conversation with you. Yeah. But Bama started picking up some with him. We'll see how that goes. I'm not sure if there's one school I would pick as leading, but don't believe me, John Garcia Jr., I just talked to him, and he said it's going to be one of those two schools most likely. And John knows this state as well as anybody with recruiting. So it's amazing how a kid it's the one city now that's not close to Auburn or Alabama in the state. It's a little more wide open. One kid like that can change the recruiting class in state, and he can help kids not only end up at Bama or Auburn, but like really be a Pied Piper. Everybody knows who he is. Everybody likes the kid, and he's just a stud. This is a very important recruitment.
When you look at Tank, is he more edge or is he more strong side D end? How do you – I know it probably doesn't really matter. I guess the reason I'm asking this is Hezekiah Harris is already part of this class, and you think very highly of Hezekiah as well. And we've had this discussion before. You can't have too many edge guys. You can't have too many guys that can rush the passer. But I mean, you do want to project to some extent, like, can both these guys be on the field at the same time?
I think he could play either. It's 235, 240, give or take, and he's just super twitchy. So if Hezekiah is just definitely a weak side and you want to play him at the same time, especially 3rd and 6, you move Tank to the other side. Biggest thing, though, is you got to be able to rotate pass rushers because they burn so much energy on a given play. Yeah. You need a lot of them, and there aren't very many. It's kind of that old situation where premium position comes into play. If you're going to over-recruit a spot, that's a good one to do.
Well, and it definitely seems like Auburn is trying to do that. And, I mean, they're loaded at that spot right now, and it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that log jam. Maybe not this offseason, but next offseason, how they handle that. But we mentioned Hezekiah Harris. You know, we're talking about Anthony Jones, Tank Jones, the number one player in the state. But then also a guy that you and I have talked about, it seems like every week for the last month or so, Zion Ely, you know, the kid from Baltimore who's committed to Maryland. Like, Auburn feels good about everything that they've done with Ely as well. Is this a situation where it's like, yeah, let's just get all the ones that we can and let's just kind of see what happens?
Yeah, if you get Ely instead of Tank, you wouldn't be disappointed, except you'd rather have an in-state kid, in my opinion. That's just how I would look
I
at
agree.
it.
I agree.
But they're very much similar players.
I mean, we'll talk more about, Gyra Edwards in a second, but like if the kids go to St. Francis, like I think at this point it is in-state. I think we're close to that point.
It is really amazing how a program can kind of fit in with somebody outside their region, and St. Francis and Auburn seem to be attached at the hip.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one for sure. You don't have to make this prediction, but I am going to put you on the spot right now. Which way do you think it's trending for Tank? Do you think it's an Auburn or an out? There's more official picks in there for Auburn, but as you said, a lot of those came months ago when we thought there was some real traction for him committing way, way, way early.
I think Bama's trended up some because they were behind, but
sure.
I don't trust their staff being fully in on committing to state of Alabama. So part of it will come down to how much they go after Ely as compared to Tank. I would look at it like I would take both, because worst case scenario, you can play Tank at strong side and you might be a little bit smaller than you'd like because he'll play at 260 maybe in college, but he's so athletic. It's just, who cares? Renard Wilson and Peter Boulware in the mid-90s for Florida State were undersized, but they led the nation in sacks.
Well, the only time that concerns me is if you're playing a team that's extremely run heavy, and those teams are just going away more and more every year. Yeah.
You could also just rotate them in a game like that. Like if you're playing Kentucky, that's probably the one team in the SEC. They don't throw it very much. You start one of them and just rotate the other and play a bigger end. That's 1 out of 12 games. You can figure it out. You get paid millions of dollars. Figure it out. Give me the talent and I'll figure out the plan for that week.
Yeah, if we're worried about 10 or 15 pounds at a certain position, I just feel like there's a way you can scheme out of that.
That's exactly right.
Especially when you've got the talent. You certainly got the talent. So we'll see how many of those edge defenders Auburn is able to land. But yeah, Tank Jones, and number one player in most lists. Some places have CD Morgan, which we both think Auburn has a really good shot for as well.
Absolutely.
So we'll see what happens there. All right, what do we need to know about Jireh Edwards? Is Auburn really in it? That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Roy. Attention Auburn fans, the future of college sports is here, and it's transparent. Before the Roy app, NIL negotiations often happened under the table, and fans didn't have a clear way to support their athletes that they love directly. Now with Roy, you can be a part of the change and support Auburn athletes in the most transparent way possible. First, you just choose the player that you want to support within the Roy NIL app. And you decide how much you want to contribute, and then you can receive exclusive content from the athletes you back. And the best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. It's a risk-free way to show your support. For a limited time, Roy is matching up to $100 per Auburn fan. That means your impact is doubled, helping you keep your favorite players right where they belong. And of course, that is here on the Plains. Download the Roy app now from your phone's app store and start backing Auburn athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and a real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Locked On recruiting expert Brian Smith, host of The Portal, hanging out with us. Jireh Edwards. He's got several big-time official visits. I mean, Auburn's going to be, this is a heavyweight battle when you talk about this kid. 4-star across the board. And he's got officials to Maryland, to Auburn, Georgia, A&M, Oregon. Is that it?
That is correct.
That is a list, Brian.
That is a very NIL heavy list based on Maryland. For those who don't know, Maryland is a major NIL player now. They can match pretty much anybody. The guy that runs Under Armour is a booster and a grad. Sure. That kind of helps. Looking at the lists, Maryland's the wild card, and then the school that concerns me the most probably will surprise you. That would be Oregon. I don't know what it is, but the East Coast kids like Oregon a lot. That it's kind of random. You would think immediately I'd say Georgia, but it's not. It's Oregon. Edwards was at Auburn a few weeks ago. He's a kid that is very athletic, could run. He's a hitter. He might be the best safety in the country. I know that Rivals has him as like the number 14 player in the country. I think he's at least top 50, but everybody's got their own opinion. And I know that you're shocked by this, but again, this is another kid from the Baltimore area. Yeah, it's just that is the connection for Auburn. It's more Baltimore than it is Montgomery. But
I mean, they're churning out guys though. So I mean, the guy that Gyra Edwards plays next to every snap, Wayne Henry, committed to this class. I mean, how do you think that impacts this?
According to what I was told, and based on a few of the interviews that I read, it's actually big. The kids on that team at St. Francis and even some of the other schools, they're pretty tight. And they tried to get, like, they got Ely to come on a visit. He didn't know anything about Auburn.
Right.
Literally, I didn't know anything. When I talked to him a month and a half ago, he didn't bring up Auburn to me. Then he visited Auburn right after because some of those guys got with him and said, hey, at least come down and check it out. Now Auburn's a player. So they recruited as much, if not more, than the Auburn staff with Ely. So I think that's a big impact with Jireh too. So yeah, it matters with some kids more than others. And here's an old saying that doesn't ever go away. Great players want to play with other great players. St. Francis is loaded. That's not a shocker. They got St. Francis kids on campus. I would imagine that pipeline is going to stay open and they have a really good shot, not only to get like Ely, but they could get Edwards too.
I mean, the line you just said there about great players want to play with great players. I mean, you look at the future of Auburn's defensive backfield and what it projects to be right now. I mean, adding another class like the one that you've had the last 2 years, I mean, you're talking about the potential, if everybody pans out, or even if half of these guys pan out, you're talking about one of the best defensive back rooms in the SEC.
That's 100% correct. And if you look at the teams that went deep into the playoff, conservatively, 3 out of the 4 starters for all the teams in the Final Four, I would imagine, will play on Sundays. Everybody can throw the ball in some capacity now. If you don't have elite DB talent, you have no shot. You have no shot. So they get big-time talent in the last couple classes at corner. You got a guy that I think will turn pro after this next year. We'll see how it goes, but that'll help. And Auburn, for whatever reason, has been a corner machine over the last decade. They
always seem to have one that's just a stud.
Yeah, really. Yeah, they always do. So it shouldn't be that hard to sell. Plus, you're in a great location. If they keep this going, why wouldn't they be a program that can compete at the top of the SEC? Because we both know, as we talked about in the last segment, D-line is something they've taken a catastrophic step forward. And
they're just young.
Yeah, I mean, this year we'll see what they do. In 26, I expect Auburn to be one of the better D-line schools in the country. So now you just need to make sure you stay at the same level in the secondary, maybe take a step up with depth. That was one thing they probably didn't have as much of as they wanted last year. That won't be a problem at all, even this year now. And moving forward, Auburn should be loaded. Yeah,
and to me, like the defense, I'm kind of expecting everything to just be fine over there. That's why you paid DJ Durkin more money. That's why you got him the extension. That's why Ohio State was interested in him and ultimately led to him getting an extension and a raise at Auburn. And I think what he's working with this year is better than what he was working with last year. And you don't have to reteach the system to everybody this offseason. Like, I think that's a huge aspect of this.
That'll also help you with recruiting because some of the mental errors, I mean, you can't see it in the stands or on TV. It's not that they couldn't do it. They just went the wrong direction. That's going to happen, especially like the first half of a season of the new system. Think about the close games.
And all those third and longs that they would give up.
Oh, my God. The Cal game will live in infamy. I mean, he was a good quarterback, but he annihilated. It was 7 out of their first 8 on third down or something. It was just insane.
I don't know.
It was really bad. You're going to have fewer mistakes with footwork, fewer mistakes on your assignment. The third down percentage, I imagine, for Auburn will improve dramatically. And when you win games, recruits like it. So that also matters.
Yep. All right, so that's Jireh Edwards, the St. Francis Academy safety. Auburn's in the thick of it with that one. We'll see how that pans out over the course of the next few months. Yesterday, he put out a tweet, Xavier Croll, the running back from Jackson, Alabama. We'll talk about one of his teammates in a second when we talk about quarterbacks. But Crowell, once again, a really solid list. It was Auburn, FSU, Bama, Georgia. for his visits.
That's a solid list.
That's a list right there as well. I mean, that is his solid Alabama, Georgia, Florida list that you could possibly get.
Yeah, Xavier, he's a guy that reclassed and is still one of the top 10 players in Alabama. He plays in the Mobile area, Jackson, and he plays with Duckworth. But Duckworth could just throw it all around if you wanted him to. But when you got Ezavier Crowell in the backfield, you're like, oh, well, you know what? Let's just run over these guys. Then he'll make a guy miss, and then he'll also outrun somebody. He's an every down back that has the ability to be your pass catcher on third downs and everything else. The only question I have is, with Auburn coming off a class with 2 more really good running backs, where does he stand with that? Does it matter? It's not like Alabama is struggling with running backs. They've got some good ones too. But
all of these schools have a running back room.
Yeah, I know. It's like there's no easy route to playing time, so I doubt it matters a ton. Florida State's running back room is actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia's, that's automatic.
Whatever. Yeah.
It's kind of gross there. So I would imagine that it's going to come down to comfort and the visit. Now, here's the secondary part. Again, this is a Mobile kid.
Mm-hmm.
There's no specific tie to my knowledge, but I was told that Auburn really liked the kid. And apparently, from what I've been told, Alabama does as well. So this could be another Iron Bowl kind of situation. Big time running back, 200 pounds that everybody wants.
Yeah. Yeah. The interesting thing about like guessing the future of the running back room, like, this is different than defensive back. I think it's different than wide receiver. I think it's different than offensive line. Like guessing the future of the running back room, I think there's more variables involved just because, I mean, only one guy gets the ball. And there's been a few guys that, I keep kind of like wondering what the role for Jeremiah Cobb is. And if Damari Austin leaves after this year, and if Cobb were to, not be happy with workload or touches, which how they handle spring is going to be fascinating to me, because I think they have to prove to both of them that they're a part of the system. And it's like, if everybody stays and you get Cobb for an extra year, then you've got Henderson and Mabson, Croll could be the 4th back in that room. Easy.
Yeah, and he's an all-around guy, so he could find a niche.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Auburn's not hurting at running back. They're doing pretty well. I remember a few of these recruitments 2-3 years ago, like, okay, well, they really need this kid. Now they've done well enough. They lose somebody, whichever one you want to pick, it's not as big a deal. They've done a good job consistently getting guys. Like Mabson's college ready, even though he enrolled a year early. He is put together. He is a human pickup truck. Good luck running into him. Right. So there's a role for him in power situations. Croll kind of fits that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's jump into some of the quarterback conversation, the future of the Auburn Tigers. That is next right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Alumni Hall. Alumni Hall is where you should buy all of your Auburn swag. This quarter zip that I'm wearing right now, got it from Alumni Hall. I think you should check out Alumni Hall as well. They've got 3 great physical locations in Auburn, in Opelika, and in Huntsville. And if you're like, well, that's a little too far from me, I know a lot of you guys listen from out of town, head over to alumnihall.com and you can pick from everything that they have in store, but it'll be shipped right to your door. Didn't mean to rhyme there, but I did. Alumnihall.com, 3 great physical locations in Auburn, Opelika, and Huntsville. Final few moments of today's show. We're joined by Brian Smith, Locked On recruiting expert. Also, go check out his show, The Portal. Make that your second listen of the day on YouTube or audio, however you're consuming this show. The Portal is there as well. I know not a lot has changed from last week when we talked about the quarterback recruiting drama, but I mean, where do you think Auburn's biggest focus should be? Is it stay with Jared Curtis, or do you go elsewhere?
I think they need to just keep pounding the pavement, but they have to be realistic. The worst thing you can do, as Auburn fans know, is miss at quarterback. If you get a really good one each year, it kind of takes care of itself, but you don't have to get a 5-star every year. Do they make a run at Duckworth? Do they make a run at somebody I don't know about? Whatever quarterback it is, they can't just fall in love with one. I hate it when coaches do that. I don't care which school it is. If you miss, and especially if it's like towards the end of June, the visits are done, then you're stuck. That's not a good place to be in. It hurts your recruiting because people want to know who the quarterback is in a class. They have to be very well balanced with how they approach the next month or so.
Well, and how they like Auburn's quarterback recruitment last year was a little unique because it took them so long to get their quarterback, and they still had a great class before Deuce Knight jumped in the boat.
It was really unusual.
Yeah. The year prior, I think, was a little bit more of what you would expect. Walker White, you get him in the boat early. Then he was one of your, loudest recruiters over the course of that year. And, Deuce can say that he was recruiting, even though he wasn't committed yet, but it means a lot more when you are committed. I don't think there's any pushback on that. So I don't want them in that situation that they were in a year ago, because I don't think you're going to be in a spot where you're fighting to flip somebody after the season has already started. I bring this guy up every time we talk just because I like him and I like his game, but Travis Burgess from Grayson, I get pushback every time I kind of like champion him. He's like, oh, Auburn could do better. He's super low rated. He's only a 3-star. And I'm like, I just think when you look at everything, the full body of work, I don't trust the ranking when it comes to Travis Burgess.
I don't either, because I've seen him live. Yeah, I think he's a kid with a lot of upside, and he's from the kind of program in Grayson. Gwinnett County is my favorite county in the country for high school football, and it's right in the middle of it. That is a big factor. He's used to getting his butt kicked every day in practice. There's no easy weeks in the conference, whole 9 yards. He has a tough game every week that's going to prepare him. And he's a kid that's also 215 pounds, something like that. And he just looks the part. Throws a nice ball. He was calm at Under Armour. He had a lot of compliments from different people that saw him throw. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking him. And this just in. About half of quarterbacks usually transfer, but now in this world, we talked about this recently, it's 60%. So if you take back-to-back 5-stars, what are the chances at least one of them doesn't leave? 2%? I mean, this kid is more likely to sit behind Deuce for a year or two. That's the other thing. So if they took him and it didn't work out, okay, whatever, you get a 4 or 5-star next year. But I think he is a 4-star, and I think he's also a kid that would wait his turn.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of this. And he was also, I believe Auburn was his first SEC offer as well. And like, you got to think that means something, especially when it's a kid who's aware of the situation he'd be going into. And it's like, okay, they believe in me. They're going to develop me. They're going to work on me and to be the guy after Deuce Knight in the future, or at least have a shot at it. I think all of those things matter, Brian.
Yeah, I don't see how they don't. Auburn is not playing this from the wrong end. They got in on him early. They know that high school well. I just don't see how they're not a finalist at the very least, unless somebody surprises me and commits to Auburn out of the blue. Stranger things have happened.
Totally.
But they're in the right spot. I think they're in a really good spot with quarterback recruiting, considering who they got last year. That's the first thing is to champion is that. A lot of coaches get lazy after they sign a 5-star. Auburn did not.
Is this the least important high quarterback recruitment since Hugh Freeze has been here?
Yeah, because they actually have some quarterbacks that are younger with talent on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
When he first got here, were you sure about what was going to happen next? Did you feel good about it?
No.
I know that I remember seeing the posts on different message boards, 24/7, on 3, etc. Everybody was like, we'll see. And then obviously it didn't work out the way they wanted. It helps to have younger players pushing the pile. If somebody leaves because they got beat out, it is what it is. Get as much talent as you can there, let it work itself out, and then the coaches take over from that point.
Yeah. All right, so we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, I like Travis Burgess a lot, the Grayson quarterback, but if you go solely by stars and rankings, he's not going to be the guy for you. But I got a feeling he shoots up at some point. Just a gut feeling. Quarterback at Grayson, he's going to win. He's going to get the stats. And as you said, you've seen him in person. Like I think his arm is decent. So we'll see. We'll see certainly what happens with Travis Burgess and the rest of these quarterbacks that Auburn is looking at. Brian, how can people check out everything that you've got going on?
Just started the Portal podcast, covered recruiting, NIL, and, of course, the transfer portal. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube. Just search LO The Portal. You'll find us. It's a lot of fun if you're enjoying the recruiting world, and especially any form of roster management, which there's a lot of that going on right now. Auburn's finally kind of got theirs in order, by the way. That's a good thing.
Yeah, no question. You did a show earlier this week with one of the guys that's pretty deep in the 7-on-7 world, and it was fascinating.
David Jones from 24K. Yeah, they're coming to Auburn March 18th.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so if you just want to learn more about that world and what that whole like cycle and system is, it's super, super interesting. So check out the portal, make it your second listen of the day today. Please like the video, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.